Hello everybody, before we get into the video, just a quick reminder that I have short animated analysis videos on every poem from the Power and Conflict cluster. I've linked the playlist in the description, so do check them out if you're revising for tomorrow. Okay, let's imagine your named poem is Poppies, and this is the question. Compare how poets present conflict in We as Poppies and one other poem. So the first thing to do is to reread or scan through the named poem, pen in hand, and to annotate anything you can think of that might be relevant to the question. So for Poppies, I might pick out the dramatic monologue form. The speaker is addressing the sun before you left, but we never hear from the sun, which highlights the fact that he's not there, and that imbalance represents the speaker's suffering. The quotation from the Power and Conflict poetry rap is sellotape bandaged around my hand, and that's an example of the blending of military and domestic language, something we see throughout the poem. By combining an everyday domestic item of sellotape, the word we might associate with war or conflict, that's bandaged, it symbolises how the speaker's suffering has taken over their daily life. This poem also has an intriguing cyclical structure. The first and last stanza are 6 lines long, and this cyclical structure perhaps represents the fact that the speaker's suffering is inescapable. So that rereading of the named poem will give me my concept. In Poppies, Weir presents conflict as something that causes great suffering beyond the confines of the war zone. Now with that in mind, I'll then flick back to the list of poem titles. Remember, you don't get any of the other poems, but you do get a list of the titles, and it's useful to go down through the list one by one, and I'll browse through that and consider which poem to compare with the line of argument I've come up with. And let me just point out, it's not that I'll now think, okay, is there another poem that uses a cyclical structure or a dramatic monologue form? No, what I want to do is think about my second poem in terms of the idea that conflict causes suffering. The June 2019 exam report said that students who led their analysis through ideas in the poem rather than methods tended to do much better. So that's why I want to follow this approach. And I'll flick back and look at the list of poem titles in the exam paper, go through each one, making my decision on which compares best, and it seems to me that there are a couple of strong potential choices here, maybe Remains or War Photographer, both of which also explore the effects of conflict outside of a war zone. Now I actually think there are strong arguments for both, but in this video I'll go with War Photographer and how the effect of conflict is sort of the opposite, that people outside of a war zone so quickly forget about it and fail to engage. And obviously I don't have that second poem with me, so I'm going to need to remember my points, but I might include Duffy's use of caesura, where rural England is placed between 2 full stops, separating it completely from the descriptions of the war zones, reflecting how the people in the poem are able to separate themselves from the reality of war. And of course this is also represented through the quotation from the quotations rap, the half rhyme in the line with tears between the bath and pre-lunch beers. Now the midline rhyme of tears and beers actually quickens the pace of the final stanza and perhaps represents the speed at which people forget the atrocities of war that they're looking at in the newspapers. So now with those things in mind, I can come up with my thesis statement for the answer. Both Poppies and War Photographer explore the impact of conflict, but whilst Poppies focuses on the personal impact, War Photographer explores its effect on a national scale. Now of course I'm not saying this is how you would have to do it if a question came up about Poppies and conflict. All I'm trying to do is show you the sort of process you might go through for that first 5 minutes. If you have a different idea, do put it in the comments section. Now if you're revising for tomorrow's exam, please do check out my playlists. I've got the Modern Prose and Drama, have a look through those playlists. I've got the Power and Conflict, the Love and Relationships. I've got videos on unseen poetry, exam technique, so do have a look through those. And of course I've got lots more videos coming, so please do subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already.